Hello again, welcome to another edition of Arts and Ideas. I'm Sue Swinand, and I have two wonderful guests today. They're powerful ceramic artists whose show, A Mother-Daughter Journey, is now here in the Krikorian Gallery at the Worcester Center for Crafts. And it opens up a really amazing dialogue between their personal visions and their materials, and it's a terrific show. I think you're going to enjoy it, and they're going to tell us all about it. Thank you very much to Rosalie Olds and Claudia Olds Goldie, who are our guests today. And I really appreciate your coming in and sharing your time with us. Rosalie, how did you get into ceramics?
Looking for something to keep me busy, frankly. I was thinking that my son's bar mitzvah coming along, I would love to make the centerpieces. And the only way I could do that would be in ceramics. And so I had centerpieces for every table for his bar mitzvah, which started me off on a sculptural journey myself.
And that was in Worcester at the Center for Crafts?
It was here in Worcester, that's right.
Yeah? And
right.
What year was that?
Oh, good Lord.
Just roughly.
I mean, when you get to be this age, you don't remember dates. I would say probably in the early 70s, late 60s.
And then you were at the Craft Center working for a number of years, and then eventually became a teacher here.
Exactly.
And how long
I was grandmothered in.
You taught many years here, and I've heard wonderful stories about your people having an experience in your class that they relish and remember with great fondness.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
People say her classes were inspiring and motivational and gave them confidence, and so you must be a wonderful teacher.
Thank you, I try.
Yeah. Now you, although Claudia has exhibited and received national prizes all over the country, but you're also a teacher, are you not, Claudia?
I am a teacher. I've been teaching for years and years and years, and actually, I came to ceramics through my teaching. I had graduated with my art degree in art. I was a sculpture major and the minor in printmaking, and I happened to bump into a friend who I'd gone to school with, and she mentioned a school that was looking to replace an art teacher in the middle of the year, and I went in on a Friday for this ceramics position, which I was not trained in particularly or at all, other than having a mother who was into ceramics, and went home for the weekend, got the job, went home for the weekend. My mother taught me how to throw in the potter's wheel and the basics of firing the kiln, and I started on Monday. So that was the genesis of my career in ceramics.
Lucky you had the personal instruction. I'm sure she was pouring it down your throat by the whole
She was
weekend.
always there when I needed her.
Yeah.
Always.
Now, so what did you study at BU?
I studied very traditional art. So I drew from a model daily, learned anatomy. I did several life size. I was painting, I was doing sculpture, all from live models. So it was a very strong background in figurative work. After graduating, I did not want to be a traditional figurative sculptor. I was looking for some way to create in a more contemporary way.
Were you kind of pushing away from the idea of being a ceramic sculptor because of your mom? Or?
Yes, yes. You know what? What she did really well, and I loved it and admired it, but I was looking for my own niche. So it was sort of actually almost humorous and maybe fate coming to call when I had this opportunity to teach ceramics. So I taught ceramics for several years at this school.
Where are you teaching?
I teach at a school called Dexter Southfield School in Brookline, Mass.
And you were teaching at Harvard for a
Yes,
while.
I am teaching. I'm also teaching in the Harvard Ceramics program.
Oh,
yes.
wonderful. Wow, you
So also
really are a busy
figure
lady.
class.
I don't know how you guys do it. Well, I want to look at your work a little bit first, Rosalie. Let's
Very
take
good.
a look at some of your work. Well, this is a tremendous piece, and I was amazed to find out that this is your most recent work.
It is, yes. I was working on it as a memorial for my husband, and he passed away about 6 years ago. So the first few years couldn't really do much with it because the pain was too great. But as the last few years, on and off, I was able to work on it.
And these are actually in pieces, is that correct?
Correct.
So that they can be fired individually and
My kiln is not as large as I would like, so I had to do that.
And you have a kiln over at the Willows now where you teach, and all your equipment is there. I'm so envious. That's
It
wonderful.
was wonderful. I had a great studio in the house, and I had to dismantle it when we moved to the Willows.
She is 87 years
Eight.
old. What?
88.
88 years old, and she's making pieces like this, and I'm so impressed. I take my hat off to you. So these are your children's portraits?
Yes, I tried to incorporate family into it since I was telling my husband's life. I'm sure that if he could come back and tell me some of the things that I left out, he would.
And it's like a tree of life?
It is a tree of life, starting with infancy. This is childhood. This is adulthood, on to old age. And I also tried to bring in the seasons with it, so I've got spring, summer, fall, and winter as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. And now this is bisque, but not bisque,
No.
but unglazed.
It
Is
is
that correct?
it's unglazed, but
Exactly.
exactly.
And then you have other pieces that you have done lots of glazing and are very colorful, like your merry-go-round or
Correct, yes.
And is that older work? Were you doing more of the glazes and the older?
And not necessarily. Some of the work, my more recent work is getting back into color because I'm working with elderly people who, I shouldn't say elderly, older people who are more into getting color. So by working with them, I'm bringing my own color back into it.
And a lot of your pieces, like I just want to point out to the audience, the horse teapot I love, or the leopard galloping, and you did a lot of works with the tureens, I remember. Now, were you always focused on non-functional pieces for the most part?
Yes, but by doing those tureens, I got back into the useful utility work.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because
so
I think of you as more like a pure sculptor, and
I loved the fact I started out with pottery. So I loved the fact that I could join my sculpture and the utilitarian work.
well, I remember first seeing your tureens many years ago, but I love the animals. What was your background before you became a sculptor?
I majored in zoology, obviously.
I thought that, yes. But you really have an affinity for animals and the way you fool around with them. I love it.
I still do love animals.
Let's talk about the one called Tit for Tat. I was intrigued by this piece because it really looks like bronze, but I understand it isn't.
No, it isn't bronze. It's a bronze glaze. The whole idea of this reference, historical reference, called for a bronze glaze. So that's what I did.
And when you say the historical reference,
Well, if you go back into Roman times, there were the idea of Romulus and Remus,
the founding,
of Rome. And so you've got the Wolverine who is nursing the two babies, Romulus and Remus. So by reversing the roles, I got tit for tat.
The title Tit for Tat, I think, is just so funny. And a lot of your work really has a lot of humor to it.
I guess my sense of humor comes out when I'm working. I don't know.
Is that like one of the major, would you say, something that you really try to put into the work? Like what are you trying to get across to your audience?
I had hoped that maybe I would get a chuckle out of them, and sometimes I do.
Well, it looks like you enjoy these pieces very much, but I love the whole concept of this, and again using the animals and the history. You were saying too that you made this glaze yourself, or?
Oh yes, it's more like a cooking recipe, but we have to adjust it to our own clay body. So it's a little tricky, but it's very doable.
Beautiful piece. This piece breaks me up. What's the title?
Fanfare for the Common Man.
With the trumpets and
There you go.
And tell us all about it.
Well, this was something that I had seen National Geographic, the picture of meerkats, which is an small African rodent. And they stood there telling me that they needed to be sculpted. So I did.
They have kind of human attributes, don't they?
Very much so. So I got some of the common man in it. I put some uncommonly common people in it.
So you have the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the kids, all these little fishermen, and then what else?
And of course there's Einstein. Around the other side is Edison. I even have Ozawa.
Yeah, and Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin is here. If you look at this one, this is the reference to art. You've got the Degas Dancing Girl. I don't know if you can see it over here, but you've got American Gothic.
Oh, that's terrific.
Around back is Van Eyck's.
I love the way you add the little materials like the eyeglasses and the fork. And did you buy that fork, or did you?
The fork I found in a drawer someplace, so I didn't have to make it.
Now this, what kind of glaze do you call this?
Well, most of this is just underglaze, so I got a little bit of color that to bring out what I'm saying. This is a full glaze. This is a gold glaze that I made up.
I like the fact that it's very matte. It looks like someplace where they'd be burrowing, in mud. It looks like a piece of mud. And I read on you say it always starts with a
lump of clay.
It always starts with a lump of clay.
That's exactly right. This happens to be paper clay, which I'm not going to get into right now because it's a little bit complicated.
But you know what I mean? It has a feeling like baked mud.
That's right.
And which is perfect for the animals.
Right.
I love it.
Who burrow in that mud.
Their little passages.
Yeah.
Great. How do you get the patterns on these? I'm crazy about the patterns.
Oh, well, that's actually an interesting story. I worked for many years, and my pieces were white stoneware, and I often worked in oxides and dark in the areas where the crevices were with stains and ink and stuff like that. And I just wasn't satisfied. I reached a point I wasn't satisfied with the surfaces. So in 2005, when I was really searching for how I wanted to push my work, went to Mass MoCA, saw the Saw LeWitt exhibit, which is an amazing, amazing exhibit, and it was an eye-opener for me because I thought if Saw LeWitt can draw on walls, I can draw on my sculptures.
All those enormous line drawings with pencil that are 16, 20 feet wide on the wall.
Yeah. And these are made with graphic pencil, very fine graphic pencil, and just drawing. It's actually changed the surface of my work, and I needed to refine the surface of my work in order to use it as a palette for drawing.
So this is a finely finished, unglazed, but fired surface.
High fired stoneware.
And it accepts the pencil beautifully.
It does. It
really does.
Now, and then I need to seal the graphite pencil after I finish drawing.
And
So
how do you do that?
I spray it with an acrylic.
Oh, wow. So that's
So you
not
can handle them,
vulnerable,
you can touch
not
them.
vulnerable to the touch. This one especially tickles me because of the way you've played with the curlicues, and that's the title of this piece, right? But the curlicues of the sheep, and then the curlicues of the pattern on the figure.
Yeah, I enjoy bringing in other materials and objects into the pieces occasionally too. So this piece is a sewn body, and all the little curls of wool are needle felted in. The piece is jointed.
Oh, I love the way the legs work. It's oh, that's so great.
So it's just fun.
And then,
piece.
so the hair, it gives a strangeness that I kind of find very appealing, and all the little beaded necklaces. Now, these are some of your most recent works, are they not?
They are. These are pretty recent. This one I actually just completed right before the show.
They seem to have some enigmatic kind of expressive quality that I find very engaging. Could you talk a little bit about what you're going for in these?
Sure. Well, actually, the enigmatic expression is exactly what I'm going for. If you look at their faces, you'll see that it's not just one emotion. It's a mix. It's a conflict of emotions on each face, and I try to establish that facial expression very early on in developing the sculpture, so that it gives the work a personality, and it sort of like a writer, their characters tell them where to take it. I find I have a very similar experience. And also what's similar about these pieces is that these figures are each in a particular context. So this figure is paddling, paddling away on a stack of pillows. How futile is that? But it's called navigating a dream, and it's very much a dreamscape. Where are you going? Where do you want to be going? It's also very sensual in the pose, and there are a lot of things that I want the viewer to see. So I give a little bit of information. I set a narrative piece, and then the viewer can fill in with their imagination.
I like the way the figures are so believable too, and there's also a very contemporary quality about them. I also thought that in many ways, the figures that you have are sometimes more vulnerable or more exposed, the way you have them dressed, than if they were nude, like the classical model, They have a great vulnerability.
Very, very observant. I'm glad that you noticed that, because they're meant to be vulnerable. They're meant to be vulnerable and strong at the same time. So they have an inner strength. They have a strength of character. But we are all vulnerable, and they're in vulnerable positions. And yes, being in their underwear, being in their bathing suits,
showing
it's not
all
always
the roles.
all the roles is not always the most comfortable place to be.
And it's about aging. It's about losing your beauty. Do you focus more on women's figures?
I do. It's not intentional, but these works aren't self-portraits, but they're very much autobiographical in that they're about my experiences as a woman. This is a very, very young girl who's
obviously
quite pregnant, and she's sunk in this ball, this is her world right now. It's this swollen, right? This swollen, consuming mass. But at one tip or turn, and that ball could go rolling out of control.
I love the way you make the backs interesting, like this long braid that goes down the back, and it's just as interesting as the front.
And it should be. They should be just as interesting as the front.
Let's look at a couple more if we have time.
Okay.
I love the way you're able to envision the female form in such a personal way. These are just so human.
Oh, thank you. Well, what I'm trying to do is portray women in the way that they see themselves, as opposed to the way society sees them. So I think a lot about aging and how we perceive women who are aging. This piece is called Returning to the Water to the Well, and this woman is trying valiantly to bring that water back into the well. She spent a lifetime taking water from the well, and now she wants to put some of that back and start over again.
Reversing the process
reversing
of
the
time.
cycle, reversing the cycle.
Amazing.
And of course, we have such strong feelings about weight in our society and beauty and what is beautiful. And I think this heavy woman is beautiful. And the title of the piece is Beauty.
And strong and
strong
full and fecund and yep.
confident. And yet you can see there's a conflict of emotion in her face. So there's also that vulnerability, that questioning, you know, that doubt. And so I try to bring all of that into the story.
You know what's funny is after you told me about being influenced by Sol LeWitt, I can't help but enjoy these lines as minimal drawing, or look at the beautiful lines in this figure, the way she's holding these fish, but her dress is almost like a fishy net, and at the same time, it's like Agnes Martin and all these minimal drawings. You're kind of echoing those things that are going on in the minimalist
It's probably
world.
all in there. I
It's
look and
all
look
in
and look,
there.
and I absorb. I look at people. I look at artwork.
Yeah, which reminds me that you also have several drawings in this exhibition.
I do, and those drawings actually are drawings of the sculptures once they're completed. So they're very large drawings. They're about 40 inches across, and they are playing around a little bit with scale because they're actually taking the smaller object and making it larger.
So the sculpture comes first.
The sculpture comes first, and it's sort of taking something that was imagined and then drawing a real portrait of that imagined object.
Amazing. I also like the way the feeling of the drawing with its dry abrasive marks sort of echoes and converses with the surfaces on your sculptures.
Well, they're both graphite pencil, and so using different materials, it affects the material differently.
Well, this has been a real delight, and you two must be really proud of each other.
We are proud of each other. And this has been a lot of fun to put the show together.
I mean, mercy, it's great.
It's been great to share.
There's a lot more you can see about Rosalie Olds and Claudia Olds Goldie online. Just look up Google their names, and there's a ton of stuff you can read and images and reviews. And your website is?
My website is oldsgoldiesculpture.com.
And I understand you have a show coming up this.
Yeah, I will be having a solo show at Boston Sculptors Gallery. It opens January 4th, 2017, so in a few months.
I'll be there.
Great.
That's a wonderful
So,
gallery. You should all come down and meet them. I'm sure you'll be there too, Rosalie.
In the SOA
I'm sure you'll be
district of
there.
Boston.
In the SOA district in Boston, the South End. But thank you again so much. And Rosalie, I want to end just by saying you are really an inspiration. I'm very happy to have had this experience.
Oh, me too.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time for another edition of Arts and Ideas.